The last time I felt anxious was probably when I was backstage for my show in Saltburn, just outside Middlesbrough. And there was, I can't remember how many people, maybe 50 people had bought tickets. And it was my first ever stage performance where I was like the reason people came. And yeah, I was definitely, my heart was pumping a little bit and I felt like, I'm not too sure if I want to sort of do this. Obviously, I wanted to, but there was that back and forth pushback on whether or not I wanted to. So that was probably the last time I felt anxious. What about you? When was the last time? You've probably got a deeper thing. I try to steer clear of my emotions.
I think that's a good question. It's hard to pinpoint the last time I felt anxious, but how anxiety manifests for me is that it sits in my body. So I find that when I'm experiencing anxiety, I start breathing into my chest more. My body gets flushed with heat and I start getting clammy and sweaty. I feel like my eyes widen. So I'm almost taking in more sensory information, which tracks because anxiety is your body putting you into that sort of fight or flight response mode, really, which is where anxiety comes from. How do you think we've evolved as humans with anxiety? Like I'm saying, it used to be sort of our fight or flight when we were in sort of on times we needed to be ready if there was an immediate danger. But do you think that's needed now in the modern world?
I think any natural physical response, and I would say that emotions are a physical response because they're out of your control, the same as if there was a physical threat. So I would say they are always there as a defense mechanism to whatever stimuli is causing them. However, if you look at everything objectively and you say, okay, if I'm feeling anxious about a situation, does it change the outcome of the situation? And the reality is, most of the time, no. The tendency is to let these feelings absorb into you and turn into your character and become one with you. And I don't think that's accepted as well widely because you can't tell somebody, oh no, you just must reject this emotion. You can't reject emotions. But at the same time, I think we should be careful in advising that people identify with their emotions in such a way that it cripples their chances of getting out of feeling that negative emotion and moving towards something more positive.
But the emotion that we're talking about is anxiety, and anxiety is a response that your body experiences or produces to try and keep you safe. It perceives a threat, and our body works overtime to get us in a state of readiness to handle that threat. So, as much as you are right, we need to look at our emotions and observe without judging. It's very hard when the body is overwhelmingly telling you that there's a threat and you need to handle it and you need to handle it now. It puts you in that state of readiness. Have you ever experienced a panic attack and the overwhelming sort of sensation that comes over your body?
Yeah, while I was in a Tesco's in Wales, of all the places, of all the times to have my first ever like proper. I don't know. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the whole previous day traveling and then being in a weird Tesco. I don't know. It's strange, but you feel like you're not really in control and just sort of being you're following where your legs are going, not telling where. Does that make sense?
You feel quite passive rather than in control. Like you say, the anxiety suddenly takes over, the fight or flight response kicks in to keep you safe, and you're almost just running on this natural instinct as opposed to feeling in control of the situation. Would you agree that's maybe how you felt?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, what triggered it?
Absolutely no idea. I think Soph wanted some cheese, and we were going to get some cheese, and we got cheese. But I normally am the one that storms off in Tesco's, and Soph's always saying, slow down. And then I was like, no, Soph, you're going to have to lead this Tesco trip. So we just walked around, and yeah, she was that. Just grabbing this, grabbing that.
So the anxiety feeling maybe came on after feeling maybe overwhelmed, new environments, maybe a little bit out of your control. So there's almost this, your body was putting you in a state of readiness because the surroundings, the variables were all completely different.
And it's difficult because you can rationalize that it's ridiculous. That's the most frustrating bit. And yeah, it's very. Can you share a time when you were facing anxiety and how you felt as you were going through it? What was the specific situation, if you don't mind sharing those details?
So I think how anxiety has played a role in my life is that I have experienced sort of the GAD, the generalized anxiety disorder, which is where I might have gone to the shops in Brighton, for instance, and I need to go to the Apple store, but I see there's a queue, so I'm like, oh, do I get in the queue now or do I go get lunch first? But then if I get lunch first, I need to make sure I've eaten with enough time to be able to get back to the shop before it closes. And you start going down this hole and you start considering every eventuality, and suddenly everything becomes a challenge. Everything becomes hard. For instance, you might go into a Tesco's, to a big shop. You might go into a Walmart, wherever it is, and you're like, well, I need to get this, 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 and this, but this is over here, but I also need to get this item which is over there. And you start almost getting decision fatigue, and everything just seems too large. And again, for me, what I found is then I'd start breathing into my chest. I would have this real inability to make decisions because the anxiety, the overwhelmingness just would make me shut down. You know, we talk about the flight, fight, or freeze. And unfortunately, I fall for the most part, unless there is a threat. In the scenarios I described, I settle into the freeze. Where would you sit? You mentioned when you were in Wales, you maybe sat into the freeze. Would you agree that's maybe your standard experience, or would it be
Yeah,
different?
I would probably say a mixture of. Well, it all depends, I think. Maybe it depends on the situation. I've been lucky enough to not face it often at all. And as soon as I'm out of that period, however long it takes, maybe 20 minutes to an hour, it's like, I'm back, baby. Let's go. Um, so post it happening, it's very easy to rationalize back. But I think maybe in the moment I'm more of a freeze, but none of it seems to really flight, fight, or freeze doesn't seem to sum up how I felt in that situation. It was very much maybe it was freeze because I felt like I needed to follow. I needed the instruction to come from somebody else for me to just blindly follow, rather than I'm gonna kick this door down and I'm gonna get everything. Like, that wasn't how I was thinking.
Yeah.
And it wasn't flight, because I think flight would be leaving the Tesco. It would just be getting out of that situation. So yeah, probably freeze.
Yeah. I think we all like to assume that we would be the fight. You know, we'd be able to rise to the challenge. But I think there's a lot of honesty in accepting the raw authenticity of the emotion. You know, I think there's a lot of stigma around anxiety. I think because it affects 1 in 6 people in the UK, and because it's the world's most common mental disorder, unfortunately, there is almost a stigma of you can use it as an excuse, which is a real shame, which is legitimately not the case for a lot of people. And I think that we need to learn to have discussions around anxiety, and also how to encourage people to feel safe with their anxieties. Safe in a sense that they can explore them, you
Mm.
know, that they can understand that it's an emotion that they can work through in some regard. You know, do you agree that there's a stigma around anxiety?
I think so, and I think people that suffer from anxiety really are aware of that, and that doesn't help anything. As we were saying with loneliness, just because you've got the label, "Oh, I'm lonely now," doesn't make anything better or anything worse. It's, if anything, you're just going to judge yourself more because you think other people are judging you from being lonely. You don't know what people are saying behind your back, and then but for anxiety, that just spirals everything into worse scenarios. So yeah.
I think the hardest part with anxiety is it makes you try and assume variables, you know, in the sense that I might think that you think a certain way about me, when in reality, that's me thinking that you think that, not what you actually think. And naturally anxiety has a few different sort of pillars underneath it. It's got, like I mentioned before, like the general anxiety disorder, social anxiety, panic disorder, OCD, PTSD. So there's whole different strands of it. But I think when it comes to the stigma, which is what we referenced earlier, is where the social anxiety kicks in. Because we want to feel accepted, we want to feel comfortable, we want to feel able to be ourselves. But we're moving into a digital world, which we touched in with loneliness, and where people are removed and they're looking through a screen, the idea of meeting people in person can feel somewhat overwhelming, which is a real shame because ultimately we thrive in a community and we thrive with face-to-face connection, you know? So let's talk to social anxiety. As a performer, I could imagine that social anxiety is something you've had to overcome very quickly.
Yeah. Playing open mic nights 3 to 4 times a week for 6 months will get rid of a lot of your nerves very quickly. And that's solving the problem through brute force. It's just, no, gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. It doesn't matter what happens, but I'm gonna do it. And I'm gonna go back next week. And I'm gonna go back the week after. And I'm gonna go back the week after that. So now going into any social situations, it's just the same as me getting up on stage. It's how it doesn't faze me at all. I'll go in any situation pretty much. And yeah, but getting to that point, going through that, it's like your hands get sweaty. It's like your heart starts beating faster, and you start worrying that your voice goes trembly when you're trying to speak, and you might get short on breath. You might feel like you've just run a marathon or something. You just can't quite catch your breath in the moment. And yeah, I mean that's how I faced it. Obviously, I don't recommend everyone just goes to do 100 open mic nights, but putting yourself do go to them. Doesn't mean you got to perform, but go and talk to groups of random people that you'd never talk to normally. And pubs are a great place to do that, but obviously all the pubs are closing. Yeah, that's how I got over a lot of that. And also, it was really interesting. 0 to 10,000 subscribers, I've really cared about what every single one of my subscribers commented, because that's your community that you're trying to build. I was known for I'd respond to every single comment. As soon as things got out of control and it was 160,000 more people on top of it, or 170,000 more people on top of the 10,000 that I knew, I really didn't care if they commented. But I don't know them. They're just random people that are trying to give their opinion on my life after only knowing me for a month. So having that mental clarity, I suppose, between people whose opinions you want to care about because they ultimately mean well for you. And I like to think that those initial 10,000 subscribers, because they had no other reason other than purely wanting me to do well, I have no reason to believe they don't support me. And if they're still around, and they are, then I can take their opinion and it means something. Whereas the person that's been my last 10,000th subscriber and they think that I'm doing everything all wrong, it's like, well, I have 180,000 people of evidence that you're wrong. And number two, if you don't enjoy it, you don't have to say anything. You could just not watch and give me more watch time. So it's pushed out to more people, which goes against the problem that you're trying to say that I should just stop. It's like, no. Then in real life, it's like, I know the people in my life that I'm going to take their opinion seriously. I know the people that I'm going to pretend to take their opinion seriously, but actually never do. Because sometimes you just got to be nice to people. I know that there's other people who I'm just not going to interact with because I don't need them. And that's difficult sometimes, but also if they're not adding any value in any aspect of life and you've got nothing to offer them, just cut the tie.
So you're suggesting when it comes to anxiety, understanding the battles you want to fight. You mentioned on exposure therapy, going out to these open mic nights, putting your face out there on YouTube. These are all things that you have done and succeeded at through repetition. I think we have this phrase of practice makes perfect, which is incorrect. Practice makes permanent. We talk about practice makes perfect, but in reality, it's practice makes permanent. What you've done is you've gone out there and you've spoken to people you have put yourself on YouTube, on open mics, and you've exposed yourself to the fear, but you've understood that battle was worth fighting. So you're suggesting there is almost an honesty that you need to have with yourself of understanding which battles to fight.
Absolutely. Like, let's get something very clear straight of all. You can't ever make positive changes in your life without accepting there's something that needs changing. That's an absolute given. So if I'm unhappy about the amount of subscribers I have, and I'm not doing anything to change that in terms of actually putting anything out into the world, because you can plan a video for 4 years, it doesn't matter. You're still not a YouTuber. You haven't ever made a video, for crying out loud. You know, you've got to be able to prove to yourself that you're doing something to work towards that goal. And anxiety, there is no room for that in that. It's like, what evidence? I'd get more anxious if I was saying, oh yeah, my goal is to double my subscribers this month, and to do that, I'm going to not upload any videos. It's like, well, everyone just go, oh, you're an idiot then. If you have a goal, think about the most rational way that you would achieve it and go for it. And if that makes you anxious, I'm sorry, but get rid of your anxiety, which is just by pushing through and doing. You've got to just do. You need evidence and reps. If you're going to hire somebody for a job, you're not going to hire the person that has no experience versus the person that does. It's like, prove your anxiety completely wrong by saying, no, I'm stronger than you.
But anxiety can be crippling. Anxiety is something that is in the brain, and the brain very much dictates everything. You know, the brain is a powerhouse. So anxiety is all encompassing. It's maybe not easy to just push through.
No, it's not.
So in that regard, it would have to be almost understanding yourself and having the tools at hand to be able to handle that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, there's nobody's saying anything's got to be pretty. It's like, for example, in my case, if I wanted to be a YouTuber but I had crippling anxiety, I'm probably still scrolling social media while I have anxiety, which means I can push a record button, okay? And I can just film myself lying in bed being anxious and title the video, I'm dying of anxiety. That will get views, and that's truly meeting the world where you're at. And what, you're going to get a comment? Okay, we'll turn comments off for that video. If you don't want comments, you can do that. You can turn comments off. Cool. So now you've just put something out into the world that can get views but can't get comments. Okay, win-win.
But anxiety can leave people feeling lost and unsure of the steps to take. Anxiety is something that you have to work on every day. Sometimes anxiety manifests in such different ways that it's so unique to different people. For myself, I struggled with my breathing for a long time. I had to be on beta blockers to help me sort of breathe. And it was only really when my ex-partner taught me how to breathe correctly did I realize that all that anxiety was actually stored in the body. And I was able to release so much of it. So I think as much as there is an element of pushing through, I think anxiety is this cloud over people every day, you know, and it's a constant battle for people to get through the storm. I think it can be really challenging, and I think sometimes just pushing through is a good mindset, but I think it can be extremely damaging for people because maybe they don't believe in themselves enough to be able to push through, so then it's a narrative that what if they try, they're just going to fail.
So what would be your solution to getting through anxiety?
My solution to getting through anxiety would be using tools at your disposal to understand yourself better. For me,
in terms of what's causing it?
Yeah, causes, but also the actual, root cause, I think is the right thing, because anxiety is very much you living in the future. You know, depression is in the past, anxiety is in the future. I would use tools to be able to understand what's happening internally. Why do I feel this need to constantly predict the future and not enjoy the present? Because ultimately life is happening in the present moment. So for me, what I found extremely helpful is friendship groups, communities. It's practicing gratitude on a daily basis. It's going to therapy, and its breathing practices have been incredible. Again, I mentioned that I learned how to breathe properly, and that's not even a joke. Like, I was breathing into my chest. I know that sounds really silly, but I was breathing into my chest. I was consciously anxious. And then I I learned to breathe into my belly. And that activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and relaxation system in the body. And I kid you not, I came off the meds within a month.
Dang.
Because I learned how to breathe properly. I learned how to understand that this feeling was within me, was in my body, was totally within my control. Which is ironic because anxiety makes you feel inherently out of control. So for me, if I was to suggest to other people how would they get through anxiety, is to try and understand yourself better. I think life is a constant quest to try and understand yourself as much as possible. But I think there's a real subtle irony in the better I understand myself, the more I realize I am able to change. You know?
Everyone is capable of change. That's the number one thing. Like, if people who are on heroin can go into what do they call them?
Rehab center.
A rehab center and stop the heroin while they're in there, then you can change. And I know people say, oh yeah, but heroin addicts go to rehab centers and they go back to their normal life and they start heroin again. Yeah, but the environment's different. If you change your environment, you can change. So maybe if you have anxiety, you need to change your environment.
What would be some good examples of changing one's environment, do you think?
Moving city.
I agree. That would be very anxiety inducing for people though, because it's new people, new environment, new culture.
You can either be anxious in one location where you know there's no hope for you, or you can be anxious somewhere else where there might be hope for you.
So it's very much, you don't know if the grass is greener, but you're not going to know if you don't try.
Yeah, I mean, obviously take that advice with a pinch of salt. Don't just go moving willy-nilly. But if you've got a supportive friendship group that are attentive and are messaging you every day and checking in and seeing how you are, encouraging you to get out of the house and it's working and you're going out the house and you're hanging out with them, moving city isn't the answer for you. But if you've had a look at your root cause and the main cause of your anxiety is, as you say, it's worrying about the future, you might be worrying about the fact that you're in a place where it's just a dead end. So taking the leap and losing a couple of friends to go into a city where you don't know anyone, but you'll meet new people and can, make a new life for yourself. Probably less anxiety ridden, because at that point you've basically given up on that old thing you were worrying about. So now there's only new things for you to worry about, and you can just decide not to worry about them. And
sorry to interrupt. You're very right there, but I think what we're talking about is external. I think we've done a lot of talking about internal and how we understand that. So what are some external causes of anxiety? For instance, financials, social media can be a huge one, relationships. Do you find anxieties that are external to be... Well, sorry, let me rephrase. What external challenges do you see create more anxiety within the world?
Parental pressure.
Can you expand?
For example, so many people go to university. Why do people go to university? Because their parents maybe didn't get the opportunity, or they did get the opportunity to go to university, and they don't want their kids to be less educated than them. Okay? University degree means absolutely jack. It does nothing for you these days, unless you're trying to be a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant. Even an accountant, you don't need it, you just do the AAT. So lawyer or a doctor are the only two jobs. And doctor loosely, obviously for a vet, anything where you've got to make an incision, get a degree. But other than those two things, I can't think of anything you actually need a degree for that a similar professional qualification wouldn't cause the same thing. But parental pressure is there, saying to you, look, well, I got a degree, you need a degree, or you're dumber than I am. So, well, no, I've just learned more appropriate skills for the thing I want to achieve. And just because it doesn't have a label doesn't mean I don't know the thing. People don't hire on CVs anymore. Not in the same way. Obviously, if you're applying for a job, yeah, you hand in your CV. But 90% of the decision is made in that first ever interview. So if they get on well with you and you're trainable, nobody won't hire you, And then your CV. I remember Dad telling me when I was 16, he leaves his GCSE results off his CV. I think he even leaves his A-level results off his CV. And maybe at this point, even his degree results off his CV. Because nobody cares once you've got the experience. So if you just get the first job and you're paid nothing and you work for 2 years for free, just getting experience, and then you say, look, I've got nothing, even if you do, but I've got nothing, but I've got 2 years of experience and a massive passion for this industry, you get the next job. So parental pressure, being hounded on top of you, saying, oh yeah, but you've got to do this. And people feel that, like, even if your parents are, oh no, I'm very supportive of you, like, yeah, but you really, like, if I was to tell you now I'm going to go and do a law degree, like, you'd be proud of me. You know, you'd be happy. You'd be like, oh yes, because it's a path that they understand. So acknowledging the fact that that's a waste of time.
So pressures that other people put on you would cause anxiety.
Absolutely.
I would agree. I think something else that causes massive anxiety in the world right now is social media. I think it's inherently ingrained in our society now, which is a real shame because people are on social media far more and they're engaging far less with other people. So then their world becomes very insular. By insular, I mean almost one dimensional. You know, I'm living my world and I'm having what the algorithm reaffirms back to me. And then I'm living through a screen. I'm not engaging with you face to face. I'm living through my screen, which then when I get invited to a party, oh, I'm going to be extremely anxious about that because that's in real life. I've got to maybe predict what I think you're going to like about me. So maybe I'm doing my research, but then I'm going to be entirely glued onto my phone. I think the challenge that we face in this world is how do we raise children now in a world where there is social media? I think social media is a huge cause of anxiety. I absolutely do.
It's really rough. I'm having the same conversation with my girlfriend at the moment on when we have kids, when are they going to be allowed a phone? Because having a phone, I think now is synonymous with social media. You can't have a phone without YouTube being on it. All Android phones by default have YouTube downloaded. And yes, you can put the parental controls on it, but why does a kid really want a phone in the first place? They don't want to call you. They want a phone because they want to look at YouTube, they want to look at social media. So then saying no to a phone makes sense, but then how would you look back at it? It's like, how would I feel if I was 14 and I still didn't have a phone? I'm 60 now, I don't have a phone. Like, at what point do you take the parental handcuffs off the child, you know? It's a difficult decision because there's something everyone likes about the wholesomeness of not being wrapped up in social media in the same way. If you're completely innocent to it all, then great. But then you don't want to limit your child in terms of opportunity in the future because everything is online. You can't get a job unless it's online. Maybe people won't have jobs in the future. I think that's very possible, like a very high possibility. I think everyone will probably go self-employed and the rest of people will be on UBI, Universal Basic Income. I think certain people will be, well, everyone will be on UBI, which just pays basic standards like your groceries every week and your rent and your whatever. On top of that, people who have the drive / are just bored out their minds will build businesses, and they'll build them using AI and all of that stuff. So keeping your kids off social media is a really difficult decision because you want, like, if you raise them like just to work on and live on a farm, like, they'll always have work because there'll always be animals that needed to be looked after. And it's unlikely robots will get dexterous enough to be able to do that in the next 30 years, I would say. And what animal would want to be looked after by a robot? I don't think naturally that would improve the animal's happiness.
So you've got societal pressure there as well when it comes
Yes,
to
I mean,
anxiety.
you don't want to set your kid up for failure. But at the same point, you know that social media will cause them anxiety and worry and comparison culture, and they'll see the best of everything in the world and they'll see the worst of everything in the world. Like, that's a lot to expose an 11-year-old to. But if you don't get them in that young, they're not going to learn how it works as quickly as everyone else. They're going to feel excluded in their real lives because all of their friends at school, or not friends, but people that are also in the school, all know about this meme that's going around. So then they're left out of the joke. So then also you're excluding them in their real life. So it's not only have you banned them from the whole world, you've banned them from their own friendship groups because they can't relate to anything.
If you could click your fingers and remove social media from the world right now, would you?
Yes, I would get rid of it. I think we were talking about this with loneliness. It's like so many people say that they're lonely, like it's an epidemic. Same with anxiety. So many people are anxious. But what's the one thing nobody's doing is quitting social media. Well, if it just didn't exist, then you wouldn't have these great statistics of anxiety, comparison culture, and loneliness.
Have you ever quit social media?
No, we're addicted. If it was a new drug that was going around, and how many people use social media? 5.1 billion a day or something across all of them. Like, if that was heroin, there would be massive government schemes banning it and whatever. But because the government are profiting off of all the social media and all the data that they're able to get from it, it's like, what's their incentive to? So you've got a whole world that just does this, which allows the rest of the world to earn money, basically, off of that. It's a difficult one, really difficult.
Yeah. I would also agree with you. I would remove social media if I could. I have also done a social media detox. I was off for 2 years. And I felt free. But I also felt extremely removed from society, which again was its own sense of anxiety, its own sense of pressure, of not belonging. It was a very interesting period because no one wants to be the black sheep, no one wants to be the person removed. But also there's a sense of freedom that comes with it. So I definitely think social media is a long conversation. One that maybe we're definitely not going to solve in one episode.
No, I think social media and its impact on society could be something we bring up with all of our guests going forward, just see their perspectives on it. How would you, and this is talking selfishly now, so I'm a YouTuber and I want to go on a social media detox.
Mm-hmm.
I still obviously need to run my business and upload videos every day. That's a non-negotiable. That is how I have to live my life. How do I go about a social media detox when that is my career?
That's a very good question. I believe that's a challenge that we have created because we've created a world where people do make money through YouTube, social media, any other stream service. And that's the society we've created. And I think obviously it's not just as easy as ending social media like that, but when it comes to people that are gainfully employed through it, it comes to a very difficult discussion. But I also wonder the impact it would have on society if everyone had a platform or had their platform removed. Would people become more ethical? Would people become better to connect with people face to face? You know, if people weren't getting their assumptions from people online that they watch, because naturally we get fed parallels, we get fed completely one side or completely the other. We rarely get that middle because that middle doesn't sell, it doesn't get clicks. So I wonder, although I empathize with you as someone that does make money online, if we were to remove content creators, period, which again, the irony would mean this for the most part, would people start connecting more face to face and having honest and open discussions, and would the world be a better place? I think maybe yes.
I agree. I think you'd probably see more village mindset in terms of we've noticed the potholes are bad. And also just think about how many hours people spend a day on social media. If you look at screen time on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok and you add it all up, I reckon every individual gets back 6 hours a day across everything, across a week on average, because weekends I reckon it's higher and weekdays maybe less. or maybe more because you were at work. Then things like my road has a lot of potholes on it. Okay, but what are we doing as a community to fix this problem? Like, what's stopping us all putting money in a pot and us as a community deciding what problems we fix, as well as having council solve problems? I think that could be a really good initiative that could be started, but I don't think it will happen without social media going away, because you've got to make people care, and people don't care. People are so wrapped up in their own lives and their own social media feeds. And I think it is all caused by social media because everyone's comparing themselves to the better version of them. If you have no social media, people are comparing themselves to the people around them in real life. Not like, I don't think you can ever stop people comparing themselves. It's something people do inherently. So whenever somebody says, "Oh, you should never compare yourself," it's like, no, stop it. You're just saying, don't be human. Like, no, it's fine to be human. It's fine to compare yourself. Letting who you're comparing yourself to, if you can adapt who that is through the removal of social media, if everyone deleted social media as almost like a social media amnesty / boycott, I think people would build stronger communities. I think there would be a lot nicer places to live. Maybe crime would drop because people wouldn't feel so desperate to try and keep up with the Joneses and whatever. This is all theoretical. I have no idea. But my idea of everyone in a community paying into a pot tenner a month or something, it's like, how many people are where we live? 100,000. If we all paid a tenner into a pot each month, it's like, how much money would that make? You know? Then every pothole is fixed if we decide that that's the number one issue. And then you'll get people, well, this school is falling down. Well, let's, build back up the school. This school failed on Ofsted. Okay, well, let's get loads of new teachers for that school because we can afford to fund it as a community.
What social media has done has made everyone look inward first. How can I better present myself rather than how can I be of better service to the community? I think that's the role social media has played.
I think it's the difference as well between the creator and the consumer. The creator is the service provider. The consumer is take. The creator is give. Because you have to make the content not knowing how many views it's going to get. You're just doing it purely in service. I feel like this is going to benefit people, therefore it's going out into the world. Whereas the consumer is offering nothing. They're taking everything. They're taking the learnings from the work other people have done there. Maybe putting comments and adding to the conversation. But if you look at comments, like 90% of mine are negative. So it's take. The only people that are going out on a limb and actually doing something are the 1% of people which are creators. 99% just consume. So get rid of consumer culture.
And when you've got people hating on the comments, that creates a sense of anxiety and nervousness because people legitimately think that's how they're going to be treated in real life.
Yeah, which it's not if you are worried about that.
So we've spoken a lot about maybe negatives of anxiety. Do you think there's any positives of anxiety? Can anxiety be helpful? Let me give you an analogy. In the right dose, anxiety can be like a smoke alarm. It protects you from the fire. The problem is, if that smoke alarm is going off consistently, even when there's no smoke, then there's an issue.
Yeah. I would say due to the overwhelming nature of anxiety, productivity goes out the window with anxiety. So it's not like fear when you can say, oh yeah, but I'm scared of falling back into my old life, therefore that keeps me driven to keep pushing forward. Anxiety, I feel like it's such an overpowering feeling. You can't be productive in that moment. And when you're out of the anxious period, I'm talking about a person who, goes through waves of anxiety, not just a constant. Because I feel that actually if it is a constant, it does make it easier because you've got nothing to lose by doing anything different. If it's in waves and you know that these anxiety waves are coming, in the gaps, does it force you to be better? in terms of more productive and more social? Or does it just make you want to take a breath and be like, I actually feel okay right now?
What it makes me think of is anxiety in regards to maybe motivation and performance. If I'm anxious because I've got a presentation at work, I'm probably going to prepare better. But if I'm completely laid back, sure, there's elements to be made or arguments to be made that if I'm completely laid back, super easy with it, maybe I'll relax into it and give a really good presentation. But maybe the reality is a little bit of anxiety is good because it makes you ensure that the work is done and you're prepared for it. Going for a job interview. If you're not anxious, you're like, yeah, I'm going to kill it. I'm just going to do great. And you walk in super laid back, maybe you won't make a good first impression. But if you're slightly anxious and you're aware and make that little bit more effort of how you're dressed, how you present, how you make eye contact, how you keep conversations going because you're slightly anxious that you want to make a good impression, maybe you'll perform better. I think there's a little bit of anxiety keeps us safe. There's been studies I don't have, which I will have to definitely look up and post. But people that live in a slight bit of anxiety, not consistent, but have slight bits of anxiety, tend to live longer because they think things through more. People that are more laid back maybe don't have good decision making as much as someone that is slightly anxious and considers variables before acting.
Hmm. So are anxiety and nervousness synonyms?
I would say they're in the same pool,
Because
yes.
I would say nervousness does push you to try harder for a presentation, for example, and just getting more reps of, no, well, I've done this presentation 1,000 times now. I know exactly how it's going to go. I've refined it and refined it and refined it, and that's perfectionism. Anxiety, I've been treating like an overwhelming feeling of loss of control, and worry, I think, comes into that as well. So I think a lot of positivity can come out of nervousness because you are nervous because you feel unprepared, probably. So then you're worrying about the future outcome of whatever you're worrying about. Whereas with anxiety, it's in the moment, it is that feeling that you can't escape. Would you agree?
Not necessarily. For me, anxiety is projecting future fears. You'll put yourself in the future, you're not in the present moment. And we've been talking about growth, and we mentioned that at the beginning of this podcast. It's very much in the sense of to grow, you must change, but just because you change doesn't mean you grow. I think anxiety, thinking of the future, a little bit can help you foresee actions and steps you should take. That little bit of worry that what if I don't get this job? What if I don't make a good first impression? What if this first date goes awfully? I think a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of worry can be useful. But again, when that smoke alarm is going off and for no reason, like I said earlier, when I was in Brighton and I was anxious because I didn't know if I should get in the line to the Apple store right away or whether I should eat first, that doesn't serve us.
No.
That puts us in a state of worry, in a state of readiness. Your body is ready to do something when in reality it just needs to relax.
Is this how you're able to get to sleep so early? Is this how you get to bed at 9 p.m. and sleep? Because that sounds stressful and exhausting.
How I get to sleep early is I have a good wind down routine. I'm
Yeah.
active during the day, and then when it comes to time, I do my journaling, do my slight breathing, my meditation. I read and out.
So jealous. I'd love to be able to get to sleep like that. But do you think the anxiety plays into that? Like, because you're just exhausted from overthinking all day?
I don't think I'm as anxious as I used to be. I used to be extremely anxious
Did that impact your sleep?
in a negative way. When I was anxious, I would wake up in the middle of the night because I was worried about what tomorrow might bring. Whereas now, although I've planned my day, I'm aware of what tomorrow brings, but I'm ready for it. I think there's a huge thing to be said when it comes to anxiety of planning can be a useful tool as well. maybe that's a coping mechanism.
Mm.
Again, two sides of the same coin, in the sense that you could argue, because I plan everything out, that is peak anxiety because you're controlling every variable. Or you could argue that I'm not anxious because I've controlled every variable.
Mm. Maybe, so what did you say, 1/6 of the world or the UK?
The UK.
The UK. So we could just say that 5/6 of the UK already plan and it's just us stumbling across that late.
Yeah.
Would be a way to reframe it. It's like, no, we're just playing catch up. So the rest of the world already instinctively knows this stuff.
So your reframing anxiety suggests that it can be a good tool.
Yeah, I mean, so much of it comes down to you just can't judge yourself for anything. Like like we've said before, if you judge yourself about how you're feeling, like you're just going to end up judging the judgment on the judgment of the judgment of the feeling, and that's just stupid. So at the end, why are we all here? What are we achieving? Like, we could get into massive life questions. I think the number one thing that everyone can agree is we have no idea why we're here, other than just for the sake of reproducing.
Very biological way to look at it.
What's our goal? It's the only goal that humans have had across the board.
I would say a big purpose in life for a lot of people is to live a fulfilled life in the service of others. I think everyone has their own ideology of what a good life is for them. Sure, arguably biologically, you could say we're here to reproduce. But on a deeper level, are we not here for each other? We're not here for ourselves. We're not here to follow our desires, our passions, our goals, our loves.
Well, I don't think we're here for the planet, because all humans do is destroy the planet, to the point where we're even looking at making a new one.
Unfortunately, I do agree with you. We've not treated this planet very well.
Which then also means we're not here for the benefit of any other species, which means that we're here for only our own self-involvement. And we just want to be the dominant species. That's our number one goal, which we achieved thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years ago. Because who knows when the pyramids were built? I know they say 10,000 years ago, but that's rubbish. They were earlier, much earlier, before the last ice age, for sure. Do you know about this? That's a conversation for another day. We'll talk about weird stuff if you like. We can get into that.
Okay.
How that wraps into anxiety, just remembering your place in the world. It's like, just at the end of life, what are you gonna hate more? Like, because you've got to imagine yourself on that deathbed and be like, yeah, what did I do for the last 75 years? I laid in bed because I was too nervous to go out, and I sort of just wish I'd seen what happened if I walked out my front door and just went for a mile walk. It's like, well, that's obvious. No, but it is, right? It's obvious, like, if you're on your deathbed, like, there must be that level of curiosity of, what if I had just walked out? You don't want to be that person. You don't want to have 75 years of regrets. So walk out that door. Just see what happens. Like, I just came home from doing something today, and somebody asked me for where a certain house number was. Like, that's an interaction that I never would have had unless I'd never gone out the house that day, this morning. So you never know who's just going to talk to you, and actually might develop into a friendship, or just somebody next time you're walking by that would give you a reassuring smile as you walk past, rather than just blanking you. So suddenly you're having an impact on lives, and other people are having an impact on your life. It's like, this is how you build community. It's basic stuff. But yeah, nobody does it. Like, you've got to have these interactions. We're social animals.
We are social animals. I would agree with that.
Even the nerds. Even if you're a nerd, go and be social. Don't just sit at home gaming on single player or even multiplayer. Go and see people.
You tell them.
But it's the game. So many gamers get caught up in depression and self-abuse. Like, no. You just need to actually go outside and speak to real people and not worry about your KD ratio. Like, think about life. Don't think about how many people you can, or how many zombies you can get.
Life is meant to be lived outside. Life is meant to be lived with others. Life is meant to be shared. Life is meant to be experienced. Life is not meant to be lived indoors.
No.
I think of a Darren Brown quote. He started one of his shows with it. I love Darren Brown. I think he's awesome. I've seen him live twice. So
Have
cool.
you seen him live?
Yeah.
Have you been up on stage?
Not on stage, but he did something on the side. I'll tell you later. And he starts one of his shows with suggesting something very similar to what we've been talking about. He goes, in life, there's things you can control, and there's things you can't control. And if you just draw a big line down the middle between the two, and the things you can't control, you just ignore them, you push them to one side, and you just focus on what you can control. A lot of these fears, a lot of these anxieties, a lot of these worries tend to just disappear. Because I can't control what you think, or what you feel, or what you say. What I can control is my reaction, is my thoughts, my feelings to what you think and say. If we're able to just work on what we can control and not worry about what we can't, the ability to be more present and less in the future, less anxious, would feel a lot easier for people.
Focusing on what you can control as well makes you realize actually how much you can control. You can control an awful lot. It's all to do with restrictive thinking when people think they can't control a situation, because I know that I can walk into any room of 10 strangers and change immediately what all of them think about me just from the first few words you say. So if you're worried about what other people think of you, then change what you're putting out into the world. Like, yes, you want to be authentically you, but if you want people to think of you in a certain way, why do you care? Number one, like, there's nobody care, like, nobody matters. Literally nobody matters. Even your best friend. If your best friend is thinking something bad about you, or is thinking that you're doing something completely wrong, or you're just going to end up causing yourself pain or whatever, yeah, but if you know that what you're doing is the right move for you in that situation, then it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, for a start. So first of all, just stop caring about what other people think, because that's a waste of time. You can change what people think about you by doing a number of things. The first one would be, whenever you see that person, what is your first interaction physically like? Do you have open, happy body language, or do you have closed body language? Instantly, that is sending signals to this person is in charge, a leader, and confident, versus this person is meaningless, a waste of my time, a warrior, not somebody I want to spend time with. That you get all of that from body language. Next thing would be visually, how are you dressed? And so we've done sort of body language, then visually, how are you dressed? Because whether you like it or not, if you're dressed like a goth versus dressed like a lifeguard versus dressed like a hippie versus dressed like an army cadet, people are going to look at you very differently. And it's all to do with your image. So what are you putting out into the world that's going to make people think different things about you? Number 3 would be, what are the words you say to the people, and then what are the inflections in your voice? Are you very monotone? Well, that's going to make people think instantly that you have no personality and they're not going to want to hang out with you. If you have an expressive voice and a very sort of reassuring voice and a very reserved position on everything, people are going to think you're very kind-hearted potentially, but also think you might be quite a pushover. You also don't want to be a complete hard ass and just like, no, well, this is how this is done, and how I am, basically, because people are going to think, oh, well, they're just bossy and they know what's up and whatever, which, you know, you can put out into the world what you want. But taking all those things into account, I've just given you the framework to make whatever impression you want on any person. Even if somebody already knows you, if I from tomorrow just started behaving in a completely different way, you'd be like, Will's changed. And your opinion would change immediately. Like if I don't know, let's say I got a Mohican, wore shades, only wore tank tops, swimming trunks, and hiking boots. You would think, Will has gone nuts. And then I start only talking with an Australian accent. And I always, whenever I finish a sentence, have a kazoo and go, burp, burp. Okay? You would think that something has happened drastically in my life to make me behave like that. But that is changing your opinion of me as a person. And if I was to keep that up for 6 weeks, you'd be like, oh no, that's just Will. And then if I was to change back to this with no mention of it, you'd be like, something happened. And maybe you choose to ignore it. Maybe you're like, I don't think I could be friends with Will anymore. But you can change everyone's opinion of you. I'm giving extreme examples because it's more obvious, but you can do subtleties and I don't wear a watch. That's a decision I've made because I've got a phone, number one. But number two, I don't need to put out into the world that, oh yeah, I've got a really nice watch, or oh yeah, I've still got the same G-Shock I had when I was 11, which I do. It's the best watch I've ever had. But different decisions change how people think about you. You can change anything you want.
Thinking about those non-verbal cues, because you mentioned what you can control and what you can't control, and you were speaking very much to what you can control, so this side of the coin. So those non-verbal cues, what do you do, because people make a judgment of you within, I think, the first 7 seconds or something of meeting you, which I think is unbelievable. But it's those subtleties, thinking about what you can control, and if you are feeling anxious, wearing something you feel comfortable in is a really great place to start. Putting yourself in an environment where you feel comfortable is a great place to start. Controlling those small little elements can help you overcome anxiety in a real subtle way.
Or in a big way. If you're truly authentically yourself and the right person happens to be in the right room at the right time and they see you, you'll get on like a house on fire because you're the same person. Like, great. It worked. Or you could choose just to signal, which is another thing, and maybe that has knock-on effects. But if you want to be seen, say you want to start playing tennis, dress like a tennis player. Don't turn up in goth stuff because you're going to be outcast by the group immediately. If you go to a tennis lesson and you're wearing tennis stuff, you'll be seen like one of them. You're already dressed like part of the group, It's easier in sports because you wear sportswear. It'd be like turning up to a football game, either American or England, and wearing a completely different jersey to everyone else. Well, it's like you're going to be outcast. Of course you are.
Yeah. Don't be wearing a Chiefs jersey to a Bills game.
Well, not unless you want to get murdered.
Just don't want to wear a Chiefs jersey
no,
at all.
Just want to, support the Bills.
Go Bills.
Supporting them this year as well. This year coming.
So you should. So yeah, Super Bowl, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that the Chiefs were even allowed into the Super Bowl last year was just embarrassing.
Yeah.
30, what was it? Maybe it wasn't even that.
And the fact the Eagles stopped caring.
Yeah, I know.
So like late in the game, we're like, oh, we've done it.
I think they gave up after the third quarter. It's like fourth quarter, they just did absolutely nothing. It was hilarious.
We are going to wrap up, but I'm just going to give you one quote, Will, to end, and I'd like you to share your thoughts on it, then I will do the same. It's from Seneca. We suffer more often in our imagination than in reality. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's true. Because the only things that really get you in reality are physical things. Emotionally, you're reliving a past memory or dreading something that's going to happen. It's never, oh, right now, I'm in so much emotional and physical pain. It's like, well, yeah, maybe if it's physical, but emotionally, in that moment, you are fine. Objectively, in that moment, there is nothing wrong. Your brain is a self-made, homemade torture device for reliving past horrors and imagining future horrors. And it was to keep us alive, of course, originally. But now it's just like, oh no, I'm not going to get any likes on my Instagram post because my last 500 haven't, and that made me feel really bad. No, it's just...
Yeah. For me, that quote, we suffer more often in our imagination than in reality, speaks to how we go about living our life. We live and perceive everything through our eyes, and I can only live life that way. I cannot see what you see. I cannot understand what you understand. I can only feel, sense, believe, smell what I perceive. So we are very much living life through our our lens, and we create these pictures and imaginations in our mind, and we live up there because it's such a complex, nuanced thing, but we suffer in there because we think that other people are perceiving us in this certain way, that other people talk about us in this way, that I've done this and they must have picked up on it. And all that's happening is the other person is thinking exactly the same thing. So I do think we suffer more in our imagination than in reality. And if we were able to just get out of our own heads and connect with people and understand that it's okay to make mistakes, life would be better off.
For sure. But also use your imagination engine for good. Imagine where you could be. Imagine what you're going to achieve. And then set the wheels in motion. Get going. Start doing stuff. Break stuff.
Break stuff, indeed.
Just go for it. Make a podcast with your best mate. And then see what happens 100 episodes in. See what happens 1,000 episodes in. See if we can get to 10,000 episodes. What's the worst that could happen?
We'll find out. That's been Anxiety, Will. Did you enjoy it?
I did. It was good. Interesting.
Yeah. Thought-provoking.
Hot in this room, though.
Always.
Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to subscribe. And, yeah.
See ya.
Bye.
The handshake every time.